Hi guys, it's me, Miss Dweck. I'm going to take you through one of the most important PowerPoints for this week, in which we have our mini essay. So what I'm going to ask you to do now is to open the PowerPoint that is called Forming Your Thesis. It's the first one listed. And you can take a pause while you do that, and we're going to go through it together. If you see on my screen, I have my Forming Your Thesis worksheet here as well. This worksheet is optional, but I think it's really helpful. So if you're like me, a lot of times I'll read through a bunch of things and I won't completely digest them and completely understand each step. If you look at the PowerPoint or watch this video, in addition to having this worksheet open, it's going to help you take it step by step, and you'll end up with a really strong thesis statement. Okay. So I'm just going to present here. By now, you should have read the assignment. And so just to reiterate and simplify a little bit, your assignment is a mini essay. It's not a whole essay. You don't have an introduction and a conclusion. You're going to have a thesis statement and 3 paragraphs. You'll have 2 paragraphs supporting your thesis statement, and then 1 paragraph that's a counterclaim and a rebuttal. It's really similar to the Heroes Hall of Fame project that we did. So you are in good hands. You've already done something like this. You're not doing too much more. The first thing you want to do to get ready is to have in front of you your annotated copies of the books. Obviously, if you've been looking at them online, maybe you haven't annotated as perfectly, but you should have access to all of the things. You should have your hero tracker with your evidence. This is going to be the most important part because you're going to be able to look at all of the books through the hero tracker. So again, we've been asking you to put 1 piece of evidence from each book. You might have 2 from book 9 or 2 from book 10 or 2 from book 23, and that's great, but you should have at least 1 piece of evidence from book 9, 1 from book 10, 1 from book 12, 1 from book 16, and 1 from book 23. In your essay, this is important, in your essay, you have to refer to at least 3 of the books. So that is like having a different piece of evidence in each body paragraph, okay? That's why we had you do the hero tracker the whole time. If you have your Heroes Hall of Fame individual writing, you can take that as well. It's not super necessary, but it will have some feedback on the last thesis statement that you made. If you are in my afternoon classes, I don't think I got that back to you before quarantine hit. It was in my outbox and I kept forgetting to return it to you. But you'll be okay because the thesis statement that we're going to do for this one is still a little bit different. So the first thing that you want to do is to determine your stance. You're going to take out the hero tracker and you want to look all around. Overall, right? We're looking holistically. Do you have more evidence to support that Odysseus is a hero or that Odysseus is not a hero? Even you may have like a gut feeling about this, like you may have some events that show that he's not heroic, but maybe you still want to argue that he is heroic. That's totally fine. For this essay, you should be doing what you believe and what you want to do. We're not assigning any specific points. You might want to pause the video. If you are following along on the Forming Your Thesis worksheet, you're going to fill in box number 1. Overall, do you have more evidence to suggest that he is a hero or more evidence to suggest that he is not a hero? The next thing that you're going to do is you're going to look for patterns. This is what makes a really strong thesis statement. So for your essay, it's really important to think holistically. We're thinking throughout the entire Odyssey. If you write an essay only talking about book 9, it's not going to be so strong because, again, like every character, Odysseus changes and he makes decisions, and the decisions have causes and effects. So we want to really think holistically. Now that you've picked your stance about whether he is or he's not a hero, go through and see if you can find a pattern or a trend. This pattern or a trend can be a motif that you notice. Maybe it's strength or tenacity or selfishness or impulsiveness, right? Maybe it's a trend with his relationships. He always fights for other people. He never fights for other people, whatever that is. If you are following along on the Forming Your Thesis worksheet, I came up with a bunch of sentence starters, and these sentence starters should help you find some of those patterns. So I would suggest pausing this video and filling out as many sentence starters as you can until you find your pattern. The example that we used here is, I noticed that Odysseus, that you repeatedly said Odysseus was heroic for his blank. Or at first I kept saying that he was heroic, but over time I kept finding stronger evidence that his relationships with other people were affecting this. You might want to pause the video. I'm going to move on to step 3. Okay. Step 3 is choosing your specifics. So in your thesis, you want to identify one quality that is the most important in supporting your stance. It could be a behavior, a motivation, or a characteristic that's repeated in more than one scenario. So if you went through and you found that pattern, now you're really going to narrow it down. What is the trait or the behavior or the idea, right? The motivation that you want to talk about. For your thesis statement, we're not looking for like the long list. Odysseus is a hero because he's strong, he's caring, and he's clever. That's a little too middle school, right? We're looking to make a more nuanced and advanced thesis. And that thesis should include one main trait, one main behavior, one main motivation that you can support with a bunch of different pieces of evidence. Do you like my hand gestures? It's like one main trait, a bunch of different pieces of evidence. Okay, that's enough, Ms. Dweck. If you are following along on your tracker, you have this little table here. So again, overall, Odysseus is heroic or unheroic. You'll choose one. And then in the next box, you're going to say the most important quality to support this claim is. You'll put that there. Step 4, bada bing, bada boom, form your thesis statement. I have a little checkbox here if you're following along on the worksheet. So you obviously want to clearly state your position. Does he deserve to be considered a hero or not? You got to make that clear. You should have a specific detail. Maybe his motivation is correct, but his behaviors are not. Maybe it's the opposite. You should provide your reasoning, right? So this is your one identified trait and your logic about why that's heroic or unheroic. I'm gonna give you an example soon. So if this doesn't make sense yet, just hold tight. You should have clear expectations for your essay, have a roadmap. So I should know the logic that you're going to be using beforehand. And this part is blocked by my Zoom. Here we go. Your thesis statement is generally 1 sentence long. There are thesis statements that are 2 sentences long, but it makes the most sense to try to compound it into 1 sentence. So here's a model thesis statement that we made for you guys. We used Eurylochus so that we didn't take away anybody's thesis statement. And I'm gonna go around and point out the different parts of it after I read it. So the model thesis statement says, in Homer's The Odyssey, Eurylochus's tenacity. Tenacity means to hold on to something really tight. So Eurylochus's tenacity, illustrated by his refusal to give in without a fight and his willingness to fight for his men, makes him worthy of being considered a hero. I, of course, mentioned the author and the title. You always want to have that in your thesis statement. I gave a major characteristic. I'm going to be talking about his tenacity, not his tenacity and his cleverness and his something else. No, this whole mini essay is going to be about his tenacity. I gave a specific example of that characteristic, so I really spoke to the details, illustrated by his refusal to give in without a fight and his willingness to fight for his men. And then finally, I, in this case, ended with a really strong claim, makes him worthy of being considered a hero. Some people might want to start with that claim, and that's totally fine. The way that you organize it is up to you, as long as you have these major characteristics. If you are following along on your on the worksheet, I have the same example here in Homer's The Odyssey, Eurylochus' tenacity, illustrated by his refusal to give in without a fight, and his willingness to fight for his men makes him worthy of being considered a hero. And then there's a spot here where you can write your own thesis statement, and then the things that we asked you to do are here to the left. So you have your checklist, you have your example, and then you can just use that box to write your own thesis statement. Once you do this, you are going to submit your thesis statement in Google Classroom. All right, you can go into there should be a form there, so you'll submit your thesis statement. The sooner you submit your thesis statement, the more likely you are to get feedback before the mini essay is complete. The rest of the PowerPoint is just some further examples of developing a thesis statement. So we did that thing here where we gave you the initial thesis statement with a strong position, and then we showed how you can add some more specific details to that. That's something that you can review on your own. So then you should be done. If you followed along with this video, that means that maybe you paused, you filled out the worksheet, you have your thesis statement. Remember, we have office hours. We are available via email. We are here to talk if you have any questions or if you need any help. That's it for me. I hope that this PowerPoint was helpful, and I hope that I see you guys soon in office hours. Bye.